In the heart of Lagos, where the Atlantic's salty breath mingled with the chaos of honking danfors and the relentless hum of generators, a gunshot shattered the night. It wasn't just any shot. It was the kind that echoed through the slums of Ajegunle, where dreams died young and hope was a luxury few could afford. But on this fateful evening, under a sky choked with stars hidden by pollution, that bullet wasn't meant for death. It was a desperate signal fired into the air by a young man named Kofi Adebayo, who stood atop a crumbling rooftop, his tattered shirt soaked in sweat, his eyes wild with defiance. "I will not die poor," he screamed into the void, the words carrying over the shanties like a prophecy. Little did the world know, this impoverished orphan from the gutters of Nigeria was about to claw his way to billions, rewriting his fate in blood, sweat, and secrets that would shake empires. The night air hung heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and frying akara from nearby street vendors. Kofi Adebayo, barely 18, climbed the rusted iron ladder to the rooftop of the dilapidated building he called home in Ajegunle. His bare feet gripped the hot metal rungs, calloused from years of running the streets. In his waistband was tucked a battered pistol he'd scavenged from a junkyard in Oshodi, loaded with just one bullet, a symbol of his last stand against despair. Below him, the slum pulsed with life. Children playing football under flickering street lights powered by illegal taps, women gossiping over basins of laundry while fanning themselves against the humid heat, men arguing politics over bottles of warm Star beer at makeshift bars. The sounds blended into a cacophony, high-life music blaring from radios, generators rumbling like distant thunder, and the occasional wail of a baby. But for Kofi, it was all a prison of poverty, a cycle that had trapped generations. Orphaned, broke, and cornered by loan sharks who'd lent him money to bury his mother, he felt the walls closing in tighter than the narrow alleys below. The sharks, ruthless men from the nearby Agbero unions, wanted their 50,000 naira back, with interest that had ballooned to triple that amount in just months. Tonight, they'd sent their boys to collect, and Kofi had heard their footsteps echoing in the streets earlier, their threats shouted like market banter. "I won't beg, I won't run forever," he whispered to himself, his trembling voice but resolute. He pulled the pistol free, its cold metal a stark contrast to the warm night. Raising it to the sky, where the moon peeked through smog like a wary eye, he squeezed the trigger. Bang! The explosion ripped through the night, scattering birds from nearby trees and drawing shouts from below. Windows slammed open, heads poked out from zinc-roofed shacks. "Who dey fire gun?" someone yelled in pidgin, panic rippling through the crowd. Dogs barked furiously, and a mother hushed her crying child. But Kofi didn't flee. He stood tall, chest heaving, as if that single bullet had unleashed something primal inside him, a fire that had smoldered for years. That single bullet wasn't for ending his life, it was for ending the old Kofi, the one who accepted scraps. From this moment, he swore silently, staring at the stars, he would rise or die trying. The police sirens wailed in the distance, but by then, Kofi had slipped away into the shadows, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. His story began much earlier, in a one-room shack where the roof leaked like a sieve during the rainy season, turning the dirt floor into a muddy slurry. His mother, Omina Adebayo, was a fierce market woman, rising before dawn each day to fry bean cakes and sell them at the bustling bus stop near their home. Her hands were perpetually stained with oil, her face lined with the worries of a single parent. "Omo mi, hunger no dey kill person with brain," she'd say in her thick Yoruba accent, ruffling his curly hair as she stirred the bubbling pot over a charcoal stove. Amina was a storyteller too, weaving tales of ancient kings and clever tricksters around the evening fire, instilling in Kofi a love for words and wisdom. But life was hard. She balanced trays on her head through crowded markets, haggling with customers for every kobo. Kofi's father? A lingering mystery that Amina rarely discussed. His name was Emmanuel, a drifter who had chased the glittering promises of oil wealth in the Niger Delta when Kofi was just 3. He went to find gold in the Black Rivers, Amina would say vaguely, her eyes distant. Rumors in the neighborhood varied. Some said he drowned in the treacherous creeks, pulled under by currents laced with crude oil. Others whispered he ran from mounting debts to shady moneylenders, abandoning his family to start anew. Whatever the truth, Emmanuel left behind only faded photographs and a void that Kofi filled with quiet resentment. Life was a daily hustle from the start. By age 8, Kofi was already out on the streets hawking pure water sachets in the choking traffic of Lagos's go-slow jams. His small voice cut through the blaring horns and exhaust fumes. "Pure water, cold one, buy now, only 10 naira." He
He'd weave between gleaming SUVs and battered yellow danfos, dodging mirrors and outstretched hands, his plastic bucket balanced precariously. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning his skin a deep mahogany. But he learned early that survivor meant being sharper than the next boy, spotting a thirsty commuter from afar, charming them with a grin. School came in fits and starts. Sporadic attendance at an overcrowded public primary where teachers rarely showed up, and when they did, the blackboard was cracked and the desks shared by 3 pupils. But Kofi devoured whatever he could. Old newspapers hawked by vendors, discarded novels fished from dustbins, even Bible stories from the local church. His mind was a sponge, absorbing math from counting change and geography from market gossip about distant lands. Tragedy struck like a sudden thunderstorm when he was 15. Amina collapsed at her stall one blistering afternoon, clutching her chest as fever burned through her like a bushfire. It was malaria, complicated by years of malnutrition, exhaustion from endless labor, and the stress of evading rent collectors. Kofi, his heart racing, carried her frail body on his back through the teeming streets to the nearest clinic, sweat mixing with tears. "Please, auntie, save her," his voice cracking. But the response was cold. "No money, no treatment. Go find 20,000 naira first." Desperate, Kofi borrowed from the loan sharks, promising repayment with interest. Amina lingered for days, her breaths shallow, until she died one quiet night, her hand in his, whispering with her last strength, "Make me proud, Kofi. Use that head God gave you. The gods favor the bold."
Buried in a shallow grave at the edge of the cemetery, under a baobab tree where mourners left offerings of kola nuts, she left him nothing but grief, grit, and a burning resolve. The loan sharks circled soon after, their demands escalating like compound interest. Homeless now, Kofi slept under bridges or in abandoned Okada sheds, eating leftovers from roadside bukas, cold iba and watery soup scavenged from sympathetic vendors. The streets hardened him further. He fought off thieves with his fists, learned to spot danger in a glance, and clung to his mother's words like a talisman. But fate twisted gently one sweltering afternoon, offering a glimmer amid the despair. Rummaging through trash behind a cyber cafe in Yaba, searching for scrap metal or bottles to sell for a meal, Kofi found it, an old Dell model from around 2010, probably tossed by some expatriate returning home. To Kofi, it wasn't junk. It was a mysterious artifact humming with potential. He smuggled it away, hiding it in his threadbare bag, and that night, in a dimly lit corner of the cafe where he paid 100 naira for an hour's access, he coaxed it to life with borrowed chargers and sheer determination. No formal lessons guided him, just intuition, trial and error, and stolen Wi-Fi from unlocked hotspots. YouTube became his university. Free coding tutorials in broken English accents, starting with basic HTML, then CSS for styling, and Python for logic. He practiced obsessively on digital scraps, building simple games to amuse the street kids who gathered around him in awe. This thing, he told himself one sleepless night, staring at the glowing screen as rain pattered on the cafe's tin roof, will be my ladder out of this hell. Little did he know, it was the first rung in a climb that would take him to unimaginable heights. The years that followed were a blur of relentless hustle, each day a battle against fatigue and doubt. Kofi fixed broken phones and gadgets for pocket change in the markets, using his growing skills to repair screens and debug software for traders who couldn't afford professional help. Word spread. That boy Kofi, he get magic for handle, they'd say, passing his name like currency. His breakthrough came at 19 when he developed an app called MarketWatch, a simple tool that tracked real-time prices for staples like rice, tomatoes, yam and gari. Drawing from his mother's market wisdom, he designed it to alert users to fluctuations, helping traders avoid being swindled by wholesalers or middlemen. He uploaded it to the Google Play Store using free Wi-Fi, and downloads spread like wildfire through Oyingbo and Balogo markets. Petty traders, many of them women like Amina, praised it as a godsend. "Now I know when to buy low," one vendor told him, pressing a few extra naira into his hand. Revenue trickled in from ads, enough to rent a tiny, stuffy room in a Face Me, I Face You building, where neighbors shared a single toilet and the walls echoed with arguments. For the first time, he could afford a proper meal, jollof rice with chicken, instead of scavenging. Emboldened, Kofi dreamed bigger. He spent nights poring over online forums like Reddit and Stack Overflow, learning about blockchain and fintech. The idea for AfriPaying crystallized during a conversation with a diaspora friend who'd complained about the hassles of sending money home. Nigerians abroad remitted over $20 billion yearly, but banks and services like Western Union skimmed hefty fees and transfers dragged on for days.
Kofi's app would use blockchain for instant, low-cost remittances, secure and transparent. He coded it in secrecy, testing prototypes with beta users, friends with relatives in the UK or US. The interface was user-friendly, with African motifs like kente patterns in the design, making it feel like home. To scale, he needed capital. Enter Chief Olumide Hassan, a larger-than-life figure in Lagos's cutthroat business circles. Kofi met him at a tech meetup in Yaba's co-creation hub, a buzzing space filled with young innovators pitching ideas over cups of zobo. Chief was impossible to miss, rotund, clad in a flowing white agbada embroidered with gold threads, his neck draped in heavy chains, and a gold tooth glinting as he laughed. He owned half the high-rises in Victoria Island and had fingers in everything from real estate to imports. Kofi, nervous in his second-hand shirt, pitched Afri-Payne during a networking session, demoing it on his cracked phone screen. Chief listened intently, his eyes narrowing like a hawk spotting prey. "Brilliant, my boy. This could change Africa," he boomed, slapping Kofi's back so hard it stung. Over drinks at a nearby bar where high-life music played and waitresses served pepper soup, Chief offered seed money, 500,000 naira, in exchange for 40% equity. "I see potential in you like I saw in myself when I started from nothing," Chief said, his voice paternal. Desperate for funds to hire developers and market the app, Kofi signed the papers that night, ignoring the nagging whispers in the back of his mind. With Chief's investment, Afri-Payne exploded onto the scene. Billboards sprang up along Lagos's third mainland bridge, proclaiming "send money home, instantly, no wahala." Kofi hired a small team, 2 coders from the University of Lagos and a marketer fresh out of school. They worked from a cramped office in Yaba, fueled by Indomie noodles and Red Bull. Downloads surged, Nigerians in London wiring funds for weddings, Atlanta-based aunties supporting school fees, Dubai workers building family homes. Revenue poured in from tiny transaction fees, hitting 1 million naira monthly within 6 months. Kofi upgraded his life, a modest apartment in Ikeja with steady electricity, his first tailored suit for investor meetings. Magazines featured him, the boy from the slums revolutionizing finance, with pictures of him smiling against Lagos skylines. Parties followed, networking events in upscale clubs like Quillox, where champagne flowed and deals were sealed with handshakes. For the first time, Kofi felt the thrill of success, the weight of poverty lifting like morning fog. But shadows lengthened slowly, like the harmattan dust settling over the city. Whispers reached Kofi from market contacts. Chief wasn't the benevolent mentor he portrayed. He laundered money for corrupt politicians through his property empire, evading taxes and bribing officials. At first, Kofi dismissed it as jealousy. Then, as Afri-Payne valuation soared to 50 million naira, Chief's demands escalated. In his opulent Victoria Island office, overlooking the lagoon where yachts bobbed, Chief leaned back in a leather chair, cigar smoke curling like a serpent. "Time to renegotiate, boy. Give me another 20% shares, or things get difficult," he said, his gold tooth flashing menacingly. Kofi, heart-pounding, refused. "We had a deal, Chief. This is my vision." Chief's laugh was cold. "Vision. Business na war, my friend. You're too soft for this jungle." The betrayal struck like lightning. Days later, disaster unfolded. A massive cyber hack. Servers went down in the dead of night. User data stolen, names, bank details, transaction histories. Panic emails flooded Kofi's inbox. Users withdrew funds en masse. Headlines screamed across Nigerian dailies. Afri-Payne breached, millions at risk. Is this the end for the slum prodigy? Regulators from the central bank swooped in, freezing operations for investigation. Kofi worked 72 hours straight in the office, his eyes red-shot, tracing the breach. The IP addresses led straight to a shell company owned by Chief. Confrontation erupted in Chief's mansion, guards eyeing Kofi warily as he stormed in. "You used me! Hired hackers to sabotage your own investment?" Kofi slammed evidence printouts on the mahogany desk. Chief smirked unperturbed. "Proof? All I see is a boy biting the hand that fed him. Get out before I call the police." Devastated, his empire crumbling, Kofi fled Lagos that night, packing his laptop and a few clothes into a bag. Hitching rides on trucks northward through dusty highways lined with cassava farms, he arrived in Abuja, the federal capital,
crashing on the worn couch of a distant cousin named Tunde, a civil servant in a modest flat. Abuja was a stark contrast to Lagos's chaotic energy. Wide boulevards, manicured gardens around government buildings, and the imposing shadow of Aso Rock looming like a sentinel. But for Kofi, it was exile. Tunde's flat was cramped, shared with his wife and 2 kids, the air thick with the aroma of eba cooking on the stove. "Stay as long as you need, brother," Tunde clapped Kofi's shoulder. Days blurred into a haze of depression. Kofi barely ate, staring at the ceiling as doubts gnawed at him. Was it all for nothing, he'd whisper in the dark? But his mother's voice echoed. The gods favored the bold. Slowly, he rebuilt. By day, he helped Tunde with odd jobs, fixing computers in his office, earning scraps. Nights were for coding, perched under a small table under a flickering bulb, pivoting Afripay in into Send Secure. He layered in advanced encryption, drawing inspiration from ancient African symbols, Adinkra patterns from Ghana, in CBD scripts from Nigeria, woven into algorithms that made hacks nearly impossible. Online courses on Coursera, funded by freelance gigs on Upwork, sharpened his skills.
In Abuja's burgeoning tech scene, Kofi pitched at a Pan-African summit held in a gleaming convention center. Tech entrepreneurs from across the continent mingled, discussing AI and blockchain over canapés. There, amid the buzz, he met Zara Nkosi, elegant, brilliant, a South African investor with a Harvard MBA and eyes like polished obsidian that seemed to see straight into his soul. She approached after his presentation, her silk blouse and tailored pants exuding confidence. "Your app isn't just tech, it's a revolution for Africa's unbanked," she said, her accent a melodic blend of Zulu and English. They talked for hours in a quiet corner, sharing stories, Kofi's slum origins, Zara's Johannesburg upbringing in a wealthy family. "I want to invest," she declared, handing him her card. "But more than money, I see partnership." Investment followed swiftly. 10 million rand wired into a new account, allowing Kofi to hire a remote team and relaunch. But partnership blossomed into something deeper. Their first date was a walk through Maitama's parks under acacia trees where monkeys chattered. Kofi laughed at his jokes, her hand brushing his. "You've overcome so much," she said softly. Dates escalated, dinners at upscale restaurants serving fusion cuisine, like jollof with South African braai. Weekend getaways to Obudu Ranch, where they hiked misty trails and shared dreams by campfires. Kofi fell hard, his guarded heart opening. "You're my anchor," he confessed one starry night, proposing under Abuja's Millennium Tower lights with a simple ring he'd saved for. "Forever," Zara whispered, tears glistening as they kissed, the city lights twinkling like promises. Send Secure dominated the market. Integrations with mobile giants like NTM in Nigeria and Saricon in Kenya. Users topped 1 million across Ghana, Ethiopia, and beyond. Valuations skyrocketed to hundreds of millions of dollars. Kofi and Zara traveled together, conferences in Cape Town, strategy sessions in Nairobi, building an empire hand in hand. She introduced him to her networks, venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, philanthropists in Geneva. Their love was passionate, filled with stolen moments in hotel suites, whispers of future children, and shared visions of a united Africa. But cracks appeared insidiously. Late one night in Johannesburg, during a visit to Zara's family estate, a sprawling villa with manicured lawns and a pool overlooking the city, Kofi borrowed her laptop to check emails. An open folder revealed damning documents, her family's diamond mining operations in the Democratic Republic of Congo, accused of exploiting workers, using child labor in hazardous pits, and funding local militias for protection amid blood diamond scandals. Environmental reports detailed poisoned rivers and displaced communities. Shocked, Kofi confronted her in the opulent living room, documents printed and trembling in his hands. "How do you sleep at night knowing this?" he demanded, his voice echoing off marble floors. Zara's face crumpled, tears streaming. "It's complicated, Kofi. My father built the company from nothing after apartheid. I joined to change it from the inside, push for ethical sourcing, fair wages, but change is slow." She begged for understanding, revealing her own internal battles, the family pressure to uphold legacies.
The argument raged for hours, accusations flying like arrows. Kofi felt betrayed anew. How could the woman he loved be tied to such exploitation while preaching African upliftment? When he pushed for immediate reforms, including divesting from the mines, Zara hesitated, torn between love and loyalty. Rivals, sensing vulnerability, competitors backed by her family's enemies in the mining world,
launched a vicious smear campaign. Fake articles flooded online. Send Secure CEO linked to money laundering via South African ties. Stock prices crashed 60% overnight. Investors pulled out in droves. Heartbroken, Kofi exposed partial truths anonymously through whistleblower sites, severing their engagement. "I can't build on blood," he told her in their final call, his voice breaking. Death threats followed, anonymous calls warning of accidents. Fearing for his life, Kofi fled to Nairobi, disguising himself as a taxi driver, blending into the city's vibrant chaos of commercial vehicles and street hawkers. Nairobi's hustle mirrored Lagos, but with a fresher highland air. Wide avenues lined with jacaranda trees blooming purple, markets bursting with fresh produce, and the distant silhouette of Mount Kenya. As a taxi driver, Kofi wore a cap low over his eyes, ferrying passengers through traffic jams, eavesdropping on conversations for market insights. "Farmers get cheated every day," one rider complained about cocoa prices. These snippets fueled his next innovation, Afri Secure Chain, a blockchain platform for transparent supply chains, tracking goods from farm to consumer to ensure fair pay and eliminate exploitation. He bootstrapped it with meager savings, coding in dingy internet cafes where the keyboards were sticky and the fans whirred endlessly. Days were long, rising at dawn to drive, dodging potholes and corrupt traffic police, then coding until his eyes burned. Loneliness gnawed, memories of Zara haunting his dreams, but he pushed on, testing Afri-Secure Chain with local cooperatives, coffee farmers in Rwanda, cocoa growers in Ivory Coast. Launch was quiet, but adoption grew organically. NGOs integrated it for aid distribution. Governments in Ethiopia used it for export tracking to combat corruption. Valuation climbed steadily to billions, all without fanfare. Kofi emerged cautiously, a self-made billionaire at 28, acquiring a discreet penthouse overlooking the Masai Mara, where giraffes roamed in the distance. He invested in solar startups, quietly funding schools in Ajegunle in Amina's name.
Then came the deepest twist. A mysterious letter arrived at his Nairobi address, postmarked from Port Harcourt, the oil-soaked heart of the Niger Delta. "Your father lives. Come find the truth." Skeptical but intrigued, Kofi arranged a DNA test through a discreet Lagos lab, sending samples via courier. Results confirmed a 99.9% match. Heart racing, he traveled incognito to Port Harcourt, navigating the city's chaotic ports and refineries, reeking of crude. The meeting was in a fortified mansion guarded by armed men in dark suits. Emmanuel Adebayo, now frail and grey, hooked to an oxygen tank in a dimly lit study lined with oil memorabilia. "Son," Emmanuel croaked, his voice raspy from years of chain smoking. "I faked my death to escape militants I owed millions from bad oil deals. They threatened your mother, you. I stayed away to protect you, building this in the shadows." Over hours, fueled by strong palm wine, Emmanuel unfolded his tale. Starting as a bunkering operator, stealing crude from pipelines, rising to a tycoon with offshore rigs, but entangled in corruption, bribes to politicians, funding to insurgents for safe passage. He revealed hidden fortunes, $2 billion in Cayman Island accounts, some from legitimate wells, much dirty from smuggling and militia ties. "It's yours now." He handed over encrypted drives. "Use it wisely." Kofi returned to Nairobi tormented, wrestling the moral dilemma for months. Accept and turbocharge his empire, funding more schools and apps, or reject, risking exposure that could drag him down. Sleepless nights followed, pacing his penthouse as lions roared in the savannah below. Investigations he commissioned, hiring private eyes, uncovered horrors. The funds linked directly to terrorist arms deals, villages razed for oil access. The weight crushed him. Memories of Amina's honest toil clashed with this tainted legacy. In a pivotal moment, staring at her old photo, he chose fire, donating the billions publicly to African education and anti-corruption funds, while leaking documents through secure channels to international watchdogs. Enemies retaliated with fury. Assassins struck. A car bomb in Lagos traffic detonated seconds after Kofi swerved, shards of metal raining like deadly confetti. High-speed chases ensued through crowded markets, Kofi dodging stores of colorful fabrics and spice vendors, using Afri Secure Chain's geo-tracking to alert allies in real time. He forged unlikely partnerships, a team of ethical hackers from Senegal, brilliant minds who'd exposed election fraud,
a fearless journalist from Ghana whose exposés had toppled ministers. Together, in hidden safe houses across borders, they planned a sting, recorded confessions via hidden mics, blockchain trails proving corruption. The operation climaxed in a dramatic raid, evidence aired on Al Jazeera, leading to arrests that shook the continent, politicians handcuffed, chiefs fleeing to exile. Zara resurfaced amid the chaos, reformed and resolute. Knocking on his door one rainy evening in Nairobi, she presented files incriminating her family further. "I chose right this time, testified against my father. Help me take them down fully." Tentative alliance bloomed, perhaps rekindling old flames, but Kofi proceeded cautiously. Rebuilt on clean foundations, Kofi's empire touched trillions in impact. Solar farms lighting slums, free coding academies training thousands in Amina's name. He married a humble teacher from Ajegunle, a woman named Fatima, whose quiet strength reminded him of his mother, and they welcomed twins, symbols of new beginnings. Philanthropy became his legacy, scholarships for orphans, apps democratizing healthcare. Yet, he often returns in memory to that Ajegunle rooftop, the gunshot echo, a reminder that true wealth is forged in choices, not just naira. From grass to grace, twisted and scarred, Kofi's saga proves the bold rewrite destiny, but integrity carves the path eternal.